Alright guys, welcome back to another Pokemon TCG Pocket video on my channel. In today's video, we're gonna take a look at the current top 5 best absolute meta decks currently in the game, right? These are the decks which every sweaty, competitive scenario are going to be useful for anyone, right? So we are currently, well, around 2 weeks into the current season, all right? So the season started at the beginning of the month, and in the beginning it was very difficult to actually grasp which decks are going to be very good and which are not, and everyone was still testing around, right? So now we are at a specific point where we can actually say these decks are top notch and these aren't. So let's actually get started with spot number 5. Right, Solgaleo EX and Skarmory. Now this deck is one of the most frequent decks I've actually faced when I was still ranking up, right? I'm currently in Master Ball, but this deck was actually one of those decks which I've seen a lot of times and which I've faced so many times in ranked. Now Solgaleo EX is the newest boss Pokemon from the new pack, and this one has actually a very useful ability, right? When you're building up Solgaleo EX on your bench, you're actually able to bring him to the active position once a turn using his special ability, which can actually draw back the active Pokemon for free and replace it with Solgaleo EX, which is gonna be huge because in the front position, you usually want to be placing your Skarmory early on, give him a Pokemon tool, and then let him do 50 damage, right? That is a lot of pressure, which is lasting on the shoulders of your opponents early on in the game while you're able to build up your Solgaleo on your bench, right? Now this deck is also, in my personal play experience, very good. I've played a lot of times with this deck. It helped me also very much leveling up. As for adjustments, you may want to change a few big things up, right? So for example, Guzma is one of those cards which I threw in because it's just a awesome, useful card. You can replace it with, for example, Iono, right? Iono would be very helpful in this deck, helping you get those Pokemon or the cards which you need in the correct position, right? Or maybe getting rid of a Pokemon communication if you need more healing and throwing in another Lily. That would also be an option, but it depends on your personal play preference, right? So I always advise everyone to test decks out before simply just using them. But yeah, this one is spot number 5. At spot number 4, we're going to be taking a look at Charizard EX. Now, the German name is Glurak, but don't worry, I got you on this one. So, Charizard EX, the new one, is actually a powerhouse, especially since Rare Candy dropped in the game, right? So now we're able to actually evolve it early on. It can charge itself with energy, pretty much being ready at turn 2-3. Decimating opponents, which is basically the deck which brought me to Master Ball rank, right? So when I was ranking up, this was the decisive deck which actually helped me win so many games back to back and finally reach Master Ball rank, which was just awesome. Running through with Charizard without any difficulties, right? Even now, 2 weeks into the current meta, it is still one of the top 5 best decks currently in the game. Very versatile. There is already different variations to this deck as well. So you have different variations where people throw in an extra copy of Incineroar EX, or you even have variations where people throw in Aerodactyl EX also in there to prevent the opponent from actually evolving, right? So there is, again, ways of playing this deck differently. Again, always test a deck out yourself. I've played it like this and it was just awesome. Why do I have one Professor's, the Pokemon Center lady in this deck? Because of the extra healing and getting rid of a special condition. Since there is a lot of poisonous arrows currently around, this one helped me a lot of times to actually remediate those bad side effects. But yeah, this is deck number 4. At spot number 3, pardon me, we're going to be taking a look at Garchomp EX. Now, I must actually admit, that is one deck I literally faced only one time in the entire time where I was playing ranked. But apparently, in a lot of community votes, in current tier lists, this deck is spot number 3 as one of the best decks currently in the game. I mean, Garchomp is already pretty disgusting, right? The first move can attack any Pokemon with 50 damage. The second move just does 100 damage straight. It has 170 HP, which is a lot, considering we're also running Rampardos on us with us on this deck. It's just broken, literally busted the way this deck plays itself. So I played a lot of rounds as well with this deck, and let me tell you this, it is just perfectly well synergized, right? You're only throwing in one Pokeball because you want to try to get the second basic Pokemon early on, which you have in deck if you are able to. You're running one stage, one copy of each of your Pokemons in this deck as well, to basically allow you to have 2 rare candies to evolve the other 2. 2 times Lily is something I definitely would always recommend having with you within this deck for the extra healing. Especially Garchomp is gonna need sometimes that healing. And the Ionos, those are like crucial. In my case, like the way I built this deck, the Ionos made such a difference. Like a lot of times you're being stuck with a bad hand if you're unlucky, and Iono is just that one card which helps you get out of a tight spot, right? So in my case, again, Iono was just so helpful, and the way you're looking at this deck right now, that's exactly the same build I can only highly recommend. Again, Cyrus is also a personal recommendation because you're throwing in Garchomp, right? Garchomp is going to be able to also hit the back row of your opponent, so you may be able to utilize a Cyrus tech the next move. However, you could also opt in to run Sabrina instead of Cyrus, right? All right, at spot number 2, we're going to be taking a look at this Arceus deck. Now, this deck, I mean, in the previous season already, I was loving Arceus, Venoflebis. I don't even know the English name for this one. It doesn't even matter. The green little plant there, and the Rotom, right? That was the strategy I played in the last season a lot, and that was already awesome because it was very strategically laid out, right? It was not just like basically you're playing, I don't know, Giratina, it's charging itself, and then Darkrai, and then, you know, like then it gets pretty boring. That deck was already awesome. Now this deck is even better. You have a lot of strategies you want to be trying to use here, right? You could opt in to run this deck with dual energy. You could run it with single energy as I did, right? Ideally, you want to have the green, the leaf Pokemon in the front position, Arceus on your bench, doing 50 damage with it, building up your Arceus on your back row. Then you also want to build up your Crobat on your bench as well to be able to utilize its ability to damage the opponent's active Pokemon every turn by 30 points. You even have a fallback. Like the worst kind of scenarios are where you start with Arceus and you're not able to draw it back, right? To retreat it. Using 2 times Leaf in this deck, you're actually able to work around such problems. Take your Leaf, bring your Arceus back to the bench, throw in, I don't know, Zubat or another Pokemon out to the active position, and you're good to go. This deck actually won me so many games even this season. Iono, again, one of those key cards in this deck. 2 times Leaf, I would actually even say it's kind of mandatory, just to try and avoid those situations where you're starting off with Arceus. But all in all, this deck is extremely strong currently. Alright, spot number 1 here, Giratina EX and Greninja. This deck is currently the top number 1. Everyone, literally everyone is voting for this deck. Greninja, one of those Pokemon, been around since day 1, had always a soft spot in the meta in previous seasons and even before we had ranked. Currently, it just had a huge return thanks to Rare Candy, right? Rare Candy bringing out Greninja earlier, bringing on to the bench, letting him do with his ability Water Shuriken, do damage to the opponent's Pokemon, and it doesn't matter whether it's active or on the bench. On top of that, we're playing Relaxo here, or Snorlax. Relaxo is the German name, Snorlax the commonly known name. By the way, I do actually prefer the German name for this one. I don't know, Relaxo. It basically means relax so. You get what I'm saying? That's like the way it is said in German. But yeah, I don't know. Let me know in the comment section what you think is better. Anyways, Snorlax is going to be huge wall in this deck, because ideally you're going to start off with Snorlax, have your Greninja on your bench, your Giratina on your bench, build up your Giratina using its ability. Now you can run this deck with Psychic Energy or with Water Energy. Now, I've personally played it with Water Energy. Why? Because a lot of times I was actually stuck with situations where I had to actually attack with Greninja instead of Giratina. Now, I've switched this deck around. A lot of times I actually had the what's her name, Irida in this deck instead of the Pokemon Center lady, which also helped me a lot of times. But ideally, you want to play this deck with Psychic Energy. I'm just recapping my personal experience with this deck, right? So playing it with Psychic Energy is actually more rewarding. You're probably never really going to attack with Greninja anyways. Most likely, Snorlax is going to be your main position Pokemon in the front. We're going to want to build up Giratina on the back row, and then essentially utilize Barry to attack early with Snorlax, and once Giratina is ready, use him as a heavy damage dealer to finish off your opponents, right? In combination with Greninja's Water Shuriken. Extremely versatile deck. Mars is here just to be the toxic part of the deck, and I've thrown in one Rocky Helmet. I mean, you could also opt in for the Poisonous Arrow or something else. I mean, you could even throw a communication in there instead of a Pokemon tool whatsoever. But I mean, that's personal preference. But yeah, the way this deck is currently now sitting at the top spot in a lot of tier lists is just crazy. And I'm really digging it that Greninja actually had a return, which I was actually looking forward to, because Greninja was one of those Pokemons always had a soft spot for me. And yeah, definitely enjoying it. So yeah, that's my top 5 current top decks in Pokemon TCG Pocket. Do let me know down below in the comment sections what you think about it. And for anyone who hasn't managed to reach higher ranks or Master Ball rank yet, do try one of those decks. You may be surprised, and it may get you all the way to the end. So, as always, thanks for tuning in. Take care of yourselves. Until next time.